Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
Welcome aboard, everyone. Welcome to the 4th episode of Democracy Exchange with the Depot, the one-stop station where we engage in conversations to foster understanding. I'm your host, Samantha Conrad. Happy holidays, everyone. Some general housekeeping items before we start. This episode of Democracy Exchange with the Depot will be the last episode for a little bit. The Depot team is going to be going on a very well-deserved holiday break until mid-January, about January 13th. So we will not be uploading another podcast episode after this one until then. Thank you all for listening, and now we're going to continue on to the episode. As you all are aware, we are in the middle of the holiday season, and because of that, I wanted to take this episode to discuss an important political problem that the holidays tend to shed a light on, and that topic is food insecurity. And today's guest happens to be an expert on community engagement and food insecurity, and she's also the director of the Falcon Food Resource Community and the founder of BGSU's Falcon Food Pantry, which is a staple BGSU organization. Everyone, please welcome Dr. Orr.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me here.
So before I begin very quickly, I'm going to take a minute to just kind of define and tell everyone a little bit about what food insecurity is. Food insecurity is defined as the limited or uncertain availability of nutritionally adequate foods, and it also is the limited or uncertain ability to access these foods in a kind of socially acceptable way. And food insecurity can vary in the kind of its severity, but there are many people in the United States who are affected by food insecurity in some way. In fact, the USDA reported that as many as 18 million U.S. households met the definition of being food insecure in 2023. So now that you guys know a little bit more about what that is, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Orr. And my first question for you is, what made you start researching food insecurity, and how did that process kind of begin for you?
So, as a professor here at BGSU for almost the last 20 years, I have watched students over the years struggle with economic issues, and part of that has always been food insecurity. And about 10 years ago, I actually put a little box in our computer lab and kept it stocked with food for our students and called it like the political science, food pantry. And then COVID hits, and started to realize the severity of the issue, and started doing some research and realized that this was like a niche area, both for my own research, but also an opportunity for us to have a direct impact on our students here on campus.
So what would you say are kind of the main factors that would make someone or contribute to someone being food insecure? So,
and I'll talk specifically about students. So here on campus, we see a lot of students who have either long-term or chronic food insecurity, but also short-term food insecurity. So, for example, we have a lot of international students here on campus. An international student who comes to the university is really limited in the amount of access that they have to support. So even something like SNAP, which is food stamps, or loans, some of the things that a lot of our students are able to access, international students are not able to use those services. International students also have a lot of restrictions on their employment, so they're limited in the hours that they can work and where they can work. Primarily, they can work on campus, and so as part of their student visa. So they don't have a lot of extra opportunities to make more money. We also are seeing a lot of international students, currency fluctuations back home. So, if the rupee falls in value compared to the US dollar, suddenly the money that they thought they had saved up and would be enough, it isn't. So we see a lot of international students. We see a lot of caregivers, so students who are parents, students who perhaps have come back to school and have kids. Kids are expensive, diapers are expensive, and so a lot of our caregivers experience food insecurity. It's one reason why we actually have diapers in stock at the food pantry at all times to try to support our caregivers. We have students here on campus who have aged out of the foster care network, foster care system, and so they're referred to as the independent Falcons. And so they don't have a safety net. And so food insecurity is one of the leading causes of students to drop out of university. So we also see a lot of student athletes. So student athletes who have, demanding practice and competition schedules and lifting times. It's really hard to also hold down a part-time job. And so we're happy to always be able to support some of our student athletes at the food pantry. And also, a lot of our students are, life is expensive. They're living paycheck to paycheck. Maybe there's a family crisis. Maybe something like a laptop breaks and suddenly there's an unexpected expense. So those are some of the root causes of food insecurity here on our campus.
And how would you say that food insecurity impacts a student or anyone's day-to-day life?
So food insecurity is a huge issue for our students. So it's not just about, being hungry and not having enough food, but it also means sometimes making, eating unhealthy, eating like cheap processed food, right? So you don't have the energy, you don't get the nutrients. And then that impacts the way you sleep. It impacts your ability to pay attention in class, to focus. And so it kind of becomes like this spiral where food insecurity ends up impacting the general health and well-being of a student, their attitude, their emotional well-being, and then also their performance in school.
And as I mentioned, you are obviously the founder of BGSU's Falcon Food Pantry, which is a wonderful resource for nutritious food on BGSU's campus specifically. And could you tell us a little bit about what inspired you to create the Falcon Food Pantry, and what was the kind of process of starting a food pantry? What did that look like for you?
So the too long didn't read version is that my curling club shut down because of COVID, and so now we have a food pantry here on campus. But in reality, we had the COVID pandemic hits, and I curl on Wednesday nights. My league shuts down because of COVID and the lockdown in Ohio. And suddenly I had a lot of time on my hands. And so I happened to see a post on Facebook that our local food pantry, Brown Bag Food Project, was in need of volunteers because all the students had left and to go back home. And so I messaged and I said, hey, I have some free time. Do you still need volunteers? And they said, yes, can you come tonight? And I said, okay. And so I go and had this amazing experience learning about the food pantry and how it operated and all the work that they were doing. And so I became a regular volunteer through COVID and all the way through to today, and got invited to join their board of directors and started to learn the logistics behind running a food pantry in our community, and realized that we could do this here on campus. And so, it wasn't easy. It took a big team of people to make this happen. But here we are. We're now in our second, we opened in March of 2022, and we serve about 1,300 students every month. So I'm pretty excited about what we've been able to do on this campus as a result of, my curling league shutting down.
Well, I think I and everyone else is glad that you at least had that temporary curling shutdown. So how much food does the Falcon Food Pantry typically get per week, and where does that food come from?
So we get a truck delivery of food every week. It ranges between 5,000 pounds to about 8,000 pounds. So today we have a truck coming, and it's I think around 7,500 pounds of food. So we do that every single week. So that food comes specifically from food banks in Toledo. So a food bank is like a giant warehouse that's filled with food that then gives that food to food pantries, and the food pantries give that food to people. So the food banks in Toledo, we have Seagate Food Bank, which is an independent food bank. A lot of that food comes from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. So it's something called, commodity food, or the TFAP. And so that's food that Congress has authorized the purchase of from farmers in the United States, and then that food gets distributed to the prisons, to the school breakfast lunch program, and to food pantries. So things like canned corn, canned applesauce, frozen chickens, milk, eggs, those kinds of commodities. The other food bank that we get most of our food from is the Toledo Northwest Ohio Food Bank, and that's part of the Feeding America network. So Feeding America has these food banks all across the United States. We're really lucky that we're so close to one. And that food is a mix. So some of that is the U.S. Department of Agriculture commodities, but it's also food that maybe has been donated from factories and food companies. Maybe they made too much and then they donate it to Feeding America. Feeding America also sends out trucks all over every day, picking up food from things like grocery stores, Target, that would otherwise end up in a landfill. And so we get that food. So, after the holidays, we'll get things like Elf on the Shelf cereal and seasonal items that the stores clear off their shelves, or things that aren't selling very well, clear off the shelves, and then they donate them to Feeding America, and then I can order them. So our stock of food just changes every week, depending on what is available. And the food banks also do purchase items directly, so we're able to get some things like that. So right now we are buried in goldfish crackers of every possible flavor, I think. So if you're a fan of goldfish, please come to the pantry and take goldfish, because I need to get them off the shelves. We also have a lot of food drives here on campus. So this community is so generous and supportive, and so we get lots of food drives. Thompson Scholarship Program has been really generous with collecting food and bringing it to the pantry, and offices on campus, the Classified Staff Council, the library, faculty, staff, departments all across campus do food drives to try to support our students. We also write grants and get financial donations, and we use that money and we shop. So probably every 2 weeks or so, I put in an order at Walmart, for example, to fill up our shelves, to fill in the gaps of things that we haven't been able to get donated. And then our last food program is we are actually working with dining services, BGSU Dining. So it's a program that one of my student interns developed called Feed More, Waste Less. And at Social House, the chefs, if there are untouched trays of food that haven't gone out on the line, they put them in a fridge for us, and then my team packages those up into Tupperware containers. They get frozen at the Social House and then brought over to the food pantry. So we have frozen meals. And I guess we have one more, because we do every Wednesday, we get Panera donations. So we get some giant bags of Panera bread and pastries. And every other week we get bagels from Einstein Brothers.
Awesome. And you guys do, just like as a follow-up point, you guys do accommodate for allergies, and you guys, I believe, also stock food for kids who might come from different ethnic backgrounds or cultural backgrounds.
Yeah, so we actually have an entire rack of food that we pull out for students who have food allergies, are diabetic, gluten-free, and so we keep that. And we make sure that is always stocked. So things like oat milk and almond milk and gluten-free cereals, and we have diabetic supplies. So for students who need some, because those get expensive, so things like alcohol wipes and foods for students who maybe go low on their sugar levels. So we keep those for students as well.
That's awesome. So how is the Falcon Food Pantry different than maybe a local food pantry?
That's a great question. So our mission at the Falcon Food Pantry is actually more than just providing food. So our mission is teaching, research, and service. So while most community food pantries really focus on the direct service, the providing food to people, we try to do a lot more of that kind of teaching and research. So we have an internship program. Right now we have 21 undergraduate student interns. So they volunteer for 2 hours a week and also help with running the pantry and coming up with new projects and ideas. And they can have the opportunity to write grants and do other kinds of research. And manage social media and that kind of stuff. So I really hope the internship program is like a resume building opportunity for our students, not just the volunteering piece. And we do a lot of guest lectures in classes. We have a Medium series. So on the website Medium, we have a series called the Ramen Noodle Diaries. So where we try to educate people about food insecurity and particularly campus issues. We are doing some advocacy work. So there's a proposed legislation in the Ohio legislature called the Hunger-Free Campus Bill. So BGSU is actually a lead institution as part of that to try to get funding for food insecurity programs at universities and colleges across Ohio. So we support honors projects for students, class projects. We do a lot of projects with different classes. We have some projects going with like business classes this semester and a PR class. And then, so we have some master's projects. So, we kind of joke that we have like global domination goals. So we want everybody to think and learn about food insecurity as much as we can, in addition to handing out food.
It's an important area of research, and I know I have seen, just since I've been here, a tangible impact among students, like the Falcon Food Pantry's had on them. What impact have you seen the Falcon Food Pantry have on BGSU students?
So, I love our internship program, and we've had a number of our interns have gone on to get full-time jobs actually working in food insecurity. So, for example, ProMedica in Toledo has a food pantry, and one of our interns was hired this summer to manage that food pantry. It's a full-time career. So we have another one who's working as a food navigator with the United Way, another one working as a grant writer with Food Bank in I think it's in Cleveland. So we've had kind of that impact on our students who are volunteering at our pantry. And so, I certainly hope that, students know that they can come to the pantry, that when times are tough, they can come and pick up a free bag of groceries and hygiene items every week. So my goal is that students, if you're going through tough times and you might be thinking about, dropping out in the middle of a semester, like that, come to the pantry, and hopefully we can help you to stay enrolled and at least get through to the end of the semester. And then maybe you can keep coming, and that will be enough to help you to like persist through and stay enrolled, and get that degree, which makes that difference, for your career and your long-term earnings. So, we get lots of stories of students who come to us and say, this has had an impact, this made a difference, this helped me. We get students who come every once in a while, and they haven't eaten in a day, they've run out of food. We have students who run out of dining swipes, for example, and, maybe they don't have a family that's supportive and would be understanding of that kind of budgeting mistake. And so they come to the pantry, and then we can, hopefully make things a little bit better for them.
Yeah, and I think a lot of students have the idea that they kind of they have no other options if they want to come to the Falcon Food Pantry, but you have said before in some of your other classes, and you're reiterating on this podcast, that is not the case, that you just need to be hungry. Like you said, maybe you've run out of swipes, maybe you just don't really have the money for groceries this week, that the Falcon Food Pantry is open to anyone, regardless of their food insecurity status.
Yeah, so one of the things that's really important to us at the pantry is that we do not ask for proof of need, because I don't know what need looks like. It's different for everybody. And so, maybe we can just make things easier. So, we estimate that the average bag of groceries that a student gets from the pantry is worth about $50. So, that's $200 a month. And it could be much more depending on what it is that you want to take. We have whole chickens, for example, frozen chickens coming today, and pork chops, so a student who has the resources to be able to cook that, obviously is going to save a lot more money. But, that's $200 a month that you can save. That's $800 over a semester that you could save by just coming to the pantry. And, one of the things that I really hope students do is that they use the pantry as a strategy, that, you don't just need to come because you are out of money and you're in a financial crisis. come to the pantry because it'll help you to manage your budget throughout the whole semester and the whole school year. Maybe that also like frees up a little bit of money so you can do something fun or go out with some friends. Treat yourself to Starbucks. Like I want students to have the best possible experience here at BGSU, and I hope that we can be a part of that and make that happen.
And so for my final question, where do you kind of see the future of your food insecurity research going, and what does a continuation of that research look like for you?
So my research is about food insecurity, and it's primarily actually about the management and administration of food pantry and food insecurity programs. So right now I'm writing a book that I received some grant funding for. So I did interviews and focus groups with food pantry directors across the United States, and trying to understand their challenges, their struggles, also the opportunities that they see. And so that book project is currently in progress. I have another research article that looks at some of those kind of more specific challenges, but how do food pantries respond to crisis, and what are the strategies that they use? And so many of these food pantries are run by volunteers. A lot of them are run by retirees. So it's a very different experience than a lot of other nonprofits that, are really focused on professionalism and, have the kind of that career path. A lot of food pantries are run out of churches and or grassroots organizations. So they're scrappy little organizations doing the work of feeding people in need. One of a research project that I'm really looking forward to that we're going to be running in the spring at the pantry with my graduate assistant is trying to understand how can we encourage students to perhaps try some new foods or take foods that we have a lot of that they may not necessarily be that familiar with. So we're doing some research around how can we encourage people to maybe try some new things. It's kind of funny because we actually remove price from the decision about what kind of food to take. So because everything is free at the pantry. So can we encourage students to maybe take some things that we get donated that we have a lot of, like sauerkraut right now. Turns out our students don't really like sauerkraut, but are the things that we can do to try and encourage people to try it. It's a healthy, nutritious food, but maybe outside of the comfort zone for some of our students, but it's free. And so we're trying to do some of that research in the spring semester, and then publish that as a way to help pantries get some new ideas about managing their inventory.
And I know I said that was my last question, but I do have a follow-up. Obviously the Falcon Food Pantry has made tremendous growth since it started in 2022, but where kind of do you see the future of the Falcon Food Pantry going?
Yeah, so I would really love to expand access to food. We do things like we provide free bags of food, emergency bags at the Jerome Library. So I'd like to expand some of that. We also have provide food to the Firelands campus here at BGSU, so we have a food shelf there. So I'm sure there's some things that we could probably do to expand work there. We also run the BGSU Community Garden, and so we just submitted a grant application to try to expand that garden and do some more work, particularly around some education pieces around sustainability and home gardening and native plants and that kind of stuff. So the community garden, anybody can go and pick anytime. So we have 10 raised beds. It's one of the largest community gardens in the region. So we'd like to think about ways that we can expand that and get fresh produce to students on a more regular basis.
And just for the sake of just kind of the podcast of the Falcon Food Pantry, could you just tell our listeners when the Falcon Food Pantry is open and when they can stop by?
Yeah, so the Falcon Food Pantry is in Central Hall 109. We are open Mondays 12 to 3, Wednesdays 2:30 to 5:30, and Thursdays 12 to 3. We have emergency food bags always available at the front desk of the Jerome Library as well.
Thank you, Dr. Orr. And yes, please stop by the Falcon Food Pantry. The staff is lovely, Dr. Orr is lovely, and they really are a great resource on campus. And that was our last stop today at Democracy Exchange with the Depot, and I want to once again thank our wonderful guest, Dr. Orr, and thank you to the Depot social media and podcast team, Margaret Kolonsky, Samantha Perry, and Maria Lettieri. And special thanks to Falcon Radio, Professor Robert Alexander, our finder, and I have been your host and researcher, Samantha Conrad. Join us next time at Democracy Exchange with the Depot. Happy holidays, everyone! And to find this video version on our podcast, you can find us on our YouTube page at BGSU Depot and for the rest of our socials.